Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Half-Life podcast. I thought I would mix in another monster here found within the first Half-Life game. I'm having fun doing these, so it's pretty nice to get back into the groove with this particular series. This one is another creature found early on within the first Half-Life game. It's a fan favorite. I love this particular monster whenever it was first encountered, and it's a shame that it was never really used within any of the other games or anywhere else in the franchise. There was a part where it was supposed to be in the sequel, and I'll talk about that here in a few minutes, but ultimately, like the bull squid, it was dropped altogether with regards to that sequel. And I'm talking about the fan favorite known as the Hound Eye, which you're looking at a picture of here. Cute little thing. This is a creature that, once again, the developers mimicked a lot of real life animal applications towards the creation of this creature. Right off the bat, you can see why it's called the Hound Eye, because of its gigantic set of eyes right in front of its face. Like basically the entire front face is a set of eyes altogether. Although it seems like there's a unique trait with the Hound Eye where those eyes blink into one eye and then they blink back into all the other eyes. It's weird because the animation when the game first came out was a little bit shoddy. The technology obviously wasn't as let's say proficient as it is today, but I believe that that's what it's supposed to represent. Like it's a set of eyes, like a compound eye of sorts, kind of like the ones that you usually see, let's say, on insects, and then ultimately those compound eyes make up one eye altogether. At least I think that's what it represents. The Hound Eye also, its most key distinct features tend to be 3 legs instead of 4. Its bright yellowish hue with regards to its skin. In some cases it has like a greenish tone as well. And then also it's supposed to mimic, in many cases, the dogs, the ones that we have here on Earth, the ones that we all love. It's supposed to be, let's say, a distinct or far off universe cousin of it of sorts. There's so many characteristics tied to the dog factor, which I'll talk about here in just a minute too. Now, as far as the Hound Eyes and when they're encountered very early in the game, and everyone remembers the particular sequence. I think it's called Unforeseen Consequences. Whenever you see the Hound Eye, there's some scientists that are there just running for their lives, and then they happen to have these Hound Eyes chasing them. The way they gallop and the way they attack, they have the pack mentality with them, just like dogs. They either attack by themselves, which is quite rare because they know their limitations, or they attack in groups. And when this happens, then they absolutely take on the pack mentality of fielding attacks left and right, so that way there's as much damage as possible to whoever they're attacking, while at the same time themselves not having as much damage given to them. By the way, let's go ahead and we'll talk about that dog-like characteristic that this creature has. There's first off the bright chirp that's very distinctive of the creature. Whenever you first encounter the Hound Eye, you'll hear them before you actually see them. They have that distinct chirp. It's nothing like a dog would have, but it definitely still reminds you of dogs. And it seems to be that the developers made this because it's a form of communication between the Hound Eyes altogether. Much like the Vortigaunts have their own unique language of sorts, so do the Hound Eyes. And so when they're chirping along, you'll hear them, and they're basically chirping to one another. And then it changes whenever they notice, let's say, prey, or in this case yourself, nearby. They even do, much like a dog, like they do like an excited pounce of some sort, like they can't believe that something is near them and that they're happy to essentially attack it. They do a distinct jump or a pounce of some sort, exactly as you would see, like let's say a dog eagerly running towards a bone or some kind of food. It seems like that's the same thing that the developers made here. Also, like dogs, they have the distinct body, almost of like a, let's say a, not like a pit bull, but a bulldog altogether. They have the powerful build. They have the front legs, much power associated with them. They only have one back leg, which is also very distinctive, and no tail. But at least with regards to that, it seems like the developers are trying to make sure that it looks most along the lines like a bulldog as well. By the way, those greenish stripes that you see within the creature itself, I always thought for the longest time, and again this is based on the limited technology when the game first came out, I always thought that they were just stripes. Like, let's say the stripes that you would see on an average tiger, or the stripes that you would see on any other form of a creature in nature. But no, actually, and you're looking at what's supposed to be like a high resolution of a definition portrait of the creature. That's actually supposed to be some kind of skin. Like you're actually looking at an open part of their skin. For whatever reason, those ridges on the back of its body, they open up, and it's kind of like in a sickly way. They have that open part that's separate from its skin, and it gives off like a faint, I guess, bluish type hue with presumably could be radiation or some other thing altogether. I don't know, but it seems like that's what that is. If anyone has any more information about what those stripes are, and if they truly are indeed, let's say, just part of their body exposed, that'd be interesting to hear. Now let's talk about the other distinct thing with the Houndeye. Its attack. It only has one form of an attack, but it can be pretty powerful. By itself, the Houndeye, all of them attack by having some kind of sonic, I guess you could call it a sonic boom of sorts, kind of straight like from Street Fighter 2 with Guile. They have this thing where they run up to their prey, they start charging up, they start emitting like this shriek of some sort. Very much the same with anything else throughout the game. If once you hear this shriek, then you know you're going to be in trouble in a couple of seconds. They build up this electric thing, the shockwave of sorts, and then they release it. And it comes out in a strong force. It comes out straight out of their body, and it attacks or impacts anything nearby. Not just you. It can include anything else that's physical. So if you have, let's say, boxes nearby, or if you happen to have glass nearby, it'll shatter, it'll break it. These sonic attacks can be pretty powerful, and in some cases, if you happen to be nearby, let's say explosives, either explosives that some of the military ops, let's say, placed for purposes of to damage you, or if you place them yourself and then you happen to have a Houndeye attacking you, be mindful of those particular explosives, because if the sonic waves hit those explosives, then they also explode them, even as the Houndeye, not knowing of course that it's going to basically kill itself, but it damages those which damage you, and it can be a bad thing. Now again, by itself, one Houndeye doing this damage, minimal, but they always attack in packs, and so when that happens, you have a couple of seconds to try to get out of there. You have a couple of choices. You could either try to shoot them all at once, but you better have a good shot, and these Houndeyes, they'll keep charging until they're hit. So if you have a pack coming at you, then you better be an expert shot. Or you could run as fast as you can away. They're not going to move, because whenever they're charging up, they don't run with you. They just stand still and then come back and then take care of them afterward. By the way, I did not know this. These shock waves come in different colors. Maybe because I was too busy trying to avoid them altogether, but they absolutely have a different range of colors. They go from being white to being sky blue to being dark blue, and then finally to being violet. Violet apparently is the most hardcore shock wave. It's the most powerful one, while if you see a white shock wave, it is the weakest one that there is. I don't know why Some of them have shockwaves that are different colors. I don't know if it's maybe like they're charging for a longer period or not. I always thought it was always one type of shockwave, but no, I was surprised to find out, and we're looking at this information, that there's various colors. If someone could tell me, is it just mainly like different Hound Eyes have different shockwaves altogether? If it's as simple as that, then that would be interesting to hear. Or if it's some other characteristic that I'm missing that happens to affect the color of the shockwaves, that'd be interesting to hear as well. Now, a bit of trivia with regards to these Hound Eyes. There was supposed to be, at one point within the game, a Hound Eye that was going to be a leader. Obviously, with them being in packs, and again mimicking so much so the wild packs involving dogs and maybe in some cases wolves. There's always a leader within the pack. And in this part, and you're looking at a picture of it here, there was going to be a particular Round Eye that would be the leader, and you would instantly know who it is because they would actually stand up on that third leg on the back of their body. They would stand up almost as if they're surveying the entire area, like whatever battle is going on, they're standing up in the background making sure what's happening is happening correctly. This is known as the Hound Eye, like the leader of sorts. Obviously it never made it into any other part of the game because we never saw anything of it, but you can clearly see that it was developed pretty late in the game. For it to have that script, and for it to have the animation, and for it to look this detailed, then you'll know that it had a late decision as to it essentially not being made later on in the game. How late it was, I don't know, but that's you can see that was a change late in the game. Also, what's interesting to know is that the Hound Eye was going to be originally called the Round Eye. Because of the the large set of round eyes, and then which culminated into one large round eye at the front of the body itself. Also, there was going to be another attack that the Hound Eye would have, but it was also changed within the game. I don't know how far along this decision was, but what it was going to do was it was going to originally use the shockwave as just one type of attack first, which is basically to stun the player, and then its second attack, the one that was cut from the game, was that it would use its claws to then attack the player itself. And so it was going to be that pack mentality where probably again using the leader standing up in the background, where a bunch of them would attack in the front with the shockwaves, then you're stunned momentarily. No doubt the game would have had some kind of disorienting factor of sorts where you couldn't really move or do much, and then the other ones would come forward and then use their claws to attack, and then that would have done significant damage. Why it was changed, I don't know, but that was going to be the main factor too. Another interesting thing about the Hound Eye is that it was going to be, and I was teasing this earlier in the game, it was going to be actually in Half-Life 2. Fan favorite, Hound Eye. It was going to be in Half-Life 2, and you're looking at some concept art here. Obviously, the big difference between this one and the first game, Hound Eye, is that it looks much leaner, much thinner, almost starving in some cases. And this look is on purpose because the idea was that as Half-Life 2 was a continuation of Half-Life 1, but several years later, this would have been like a real-life evolution of the animal. Because apparently the Hound Eye, during the time period of Half-Life 2, would have been at a point where they're facing, like, let's say, massive starvation of sorts. They're not eating, or they're not finding the right food anymore, and so their bodies are turning thinner and thinner. And this, in turn, would have been interesting because the Half-Life 2 developers would in turn have had the Hound Eye be much more of a predator of sorts, with its body essentially starving away, and it being at a point where it's either eat or famine. Then it would have been a much more like a beast of sorts. It would have been a much harder predator than it was in the first game, probably attacking anything and everything just to eat something. By the way, that's another interesting thing about the Hound Eye 2. Did you know that it does have actually a mouth within its body? And you're looking at a picture of it here. The reason why you and I probably never saw its mouth was because it is completely hidden underneath the body itself. But there you see it. It looks like it has little mandibles. It's right underneath its belly. So presumably, whatever prey it has, kills. At that point, it would just simply go over the prey and then almost like squat right next to it and use the mandibles on the bottom to eat its prey. I think there was at one point an animation of this in Half-Life Blue Shift, but I can't remember if it was there or not, but I think that would have been the closest that we would have seen to it eating anything as far as people or other animals themselves. The Hound Eye, by the way, too, it gets its prey for other animals within the Half-Life game. In fact, if I remember correctly, I believe the bull squid was the natural enemy of the Hound Eye, and then on top of that, the Hound Eye, when it's encountered in other parts of Zen, like those trees, the ones that pretty much stab and poke at anything nearby them, then the Hound Eye can fall prey to those particular creatures. It'll just die after several hits altogether. So another fascinating point there with regards to the Hound Eye. Interesting animal. Again, that's a shame that it wasn't introduced within any of the other sequels. The closest it would have been in Half-Life 2 would have been something as far as like a train ride of sorts, a much longer one than the one that currently is in Half-Life 2, and you would have seen it within certain parts of the canals on that train ride, but then that would have been it. So unknown if it would have actually been an animal you would have encountered in terms of an attack later on within the game. So, alright, if anyone has any more information, interesting stuff about the Hound Eye, it'd be great to hear. Otherwise, quite a fascinating creature. So, alright everybody, thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.